Hello everyone, my name is Fred, and in this video, I'll show you the process of creating a stylized backpack for the main character of my personal project. I have this character that I created quite recently, and he needs a backpack. I start my work by creating a blockout. First, I use basic primitives to build the basic shapes of the future backpack. At the blockout stage, it's very important to create expressive basic shapes that will be readable from any distance. At the blockout stage, it's important to understand what material you're working with. The backpack is made entirely of fabric and should look puffy and inflated. When working with stylization, I try to slightly exaggerate and overemphasize the basic shapes to make them more expressive. After creating the templates for the details, I move on to more detailed silhouette work. In some places, I bend and stretch the model to achieve a cartoonish look. For example, this rolled-up rug on the top of the backpack will look much more interesting and cartoonish if you give it more flexibility. To do this, I simply add a few wraps that tighten it on the sides. Now it looks much better. While building the basic shapes, I don't forget to add details. I add a piece of fabric to the top of the backpack that mimics the closure of the main pocket. As you can see, I create the blockout for subdivision so that during sculpting in ZBrush, I don't waste time improving the shapes. I always try to model the best possible blockout so that in ZBrush, I can focus directly on sculpting the texture of the materials. This is my personal approach, which I constantly use to save time. My character is a traveler, so I'm trying to create a camping backpack. I add these wide straps to the center of the backpack, where various explorer attributes can be placed. Currently, the main backpack is slightly smaller than needed, so I edit the main shapes to create more free space between the straps. Don't forget about the side pockets, where additional inventory can be placed. To make the backpack look more interesting, I use asymmetry in the design. On the left, there will be a square pocket, and on the right, a more rounded and open one. Asymmetry in design is a great way to create more interest in your work. I remind you that you can watch the full videos without speed up on my Boosty. Just scan the QR code or follow the link in the description to my Boosty. The first week to watch this video will be completely free. I slightly deform the shape of the pocket to make it look more interesting. For this, I simply make it a bit narrower at the bottom. My main task is to get a good basic shape for further sculpting. It's time to add straps to our backpack. And as you can see, I didn't add the character for nothing. When creating clothing elements, it's important to look and build the design based on your main character. I also want to show you a bit of modeling additional props for the backpack. I want to create a really interesting design and add some survival and gathering attributes. Right now, I'm modeling a frying pan that will hang on the backpack and tell us the character's story. Any prop and clothing element should have distinctive features so that the player can visually perceive the element and immerse themselves in the main story of the game. I also create the frying pan for subdiv so that in ZBrush, I don't deform the main shape, but only work on the metal texture. It's very important to apply and place all elements in the right places, as this will help you better understand proportions and track the main design. I simply place the frying pan where it will hang. I don't want to drag this video out, so I'll immediately show you what my final blockout for our camping backpack looks like. I created additional elements, scrolls, a fish, and a spear, so that the player understands that the main character is a fisherman and a survivalist. When creating a blockout, pay attention to the model's silhouette. This is a very important aspect. The more interesting and varied your silhouette is, the better the object will be readable from a distance. This is really important in stylization. When the blockout is completely ready, I simply export all the objects in FBX format and move to ZBrush. I load the ZBrush blockout and apply subdiv to all elements to make them look soft and smooth. The objects smooth correctly because I created supporting loops at the blockout stage in May. First, I want to add more detail to the main part of the backpack and draw these stripes with a mask. Using the extract function, I extrude the geometry, and we get this beautiful ribbon. I would say this is an additional volumetric pattern on the fabric that perfectly details our design. Using the Move brush, I hide unnecessary pieces of the pattern so that it's only on the sides of the backpack and proceed to detailing. I want to make this stripe more voluminous, and I simply draw 2 lines along the edges of the ribbon using the damn standard brush. It looks like seams or folds, only more stylized. I add the same effect to the rubber stripes to clarify the attachment point. During sculpting, there's no point in adding a lot of detail because this work can be done in Substance Painter at the texturing stage. In general, stylized sculpting should always look simpler than realistic. Sculpting fabric involves only soft inflated shapes and folds that can be added manually using various brushes or created with fold alphas. Let's return to the side pattern and add threads to it. For this, I use my personal set of WDM brushes for ZBrush, which I created last year. By the way, you can find this and other products on my ArtStation via the link in the description. With these threads, the side pattern looks much more attractive and adds interest to the design. Now I want to detail the side pockets, but don't forget that we need to get a readable silhouette and a simple stylized visual. So I simply mask off the top edge of the pocket and also create a semblance of a ribbon or curved edge. I think you understand what I mean. We align the top edge of the pocket to make it more even. For this, I use the Move brush with a smaller radius. I create the same effect for all pockets so that they have puffy edges. Later, I can paint them in a different color and make the backpack more interesting. Don't forget about the story in the objects. Our character is a traveler, and his clothes may have damage. I simply create seams on the side pocket, and this adds the effect of worn clothing that has survived many adventures. To create the threads, I also use my previous set of VDM brushes and add regular threads. Note that I place the alphas at a slight angle. This is also a kind of stylized technique that makes the design unique. For creating the fish, I use symmetry and start my sculpting from a sphere that resembles a fish in silhouette. When working with organics, I use the same techniques and start by building the basic shape. I immediately outline the fins and eye positions. After the main shapes are ready, I start refining them and making them more believable. For initial work with organics, I use the Move and Clay build-up brushes, and I refine the joints with the DEM standard brush. I immediately add small spheres as pupils and refine the medium shapes of the fish. I remind you that you can find the full videos without speed up on my Boosty. Just scan the QR code and follow the link in the description. Now it's time to refine the fine details on the fins and add some volume to the main shapes. I won't create finer details like scales for this fish because it's small in size and won't be noticeable in the game. I leave all the small details for the texturing stage. Our fish is a catch, so it would be appropriate to add a hook on which it will be attached to the backpack. I also try to lay out the silhouette in the hook to make it look a bit aged. After the fish is ready, I proceed to work on the other props. The basic shape of the frying pan is completely ready, and it's necessary to detail the metal texture. For this, I simply deform the edges a bit using the Trim Dynamic brush. When creating such damage, it's important to feel the balance and not deform the edges too much. To make the design and silhouette of the frying pan more interesting, I add a few fabric wraps and try to make them unevenly smooth to give them an interesting shape. For this, I also use the extract function to extrude the mask, after which I refine the fabric shape and make it softer at the edges. Our frying pan will also hang on the backpack, so I think about the attachment element. Creating through holes is very expensive in terms of optimization, so I make small fake holes on both sides. The frying pan will dangle on the backpack, so I think it's necessary to add a few accents to the empty parts. I simply create a few large scratches on the metal surface that will be visible from a distance. To not drag out the video, I finished all the elements off screen, and here's what I got. And if you want to know more about certain things, suggest your thoughts for new content in the comments. And don't forget to like, it really motivates me to create new videos. I also broke down all the objects into different colors to later create an ID map for painting in Substance Painter. Now I export the high poly in FBX format for baking and create an additional lightweight FBX file with a decimated version for Retopology in Maya. I go back to Maya and import the decimated version of our backpack. I select the first element and enable symmetry to save time in creating the low poly. Most of the elements for this backpack will be symmetrical, like the fish and the rug. This way, I can save space on the UV space and create overlaps. It's important to understand that clothing for a character is a foreground object that will always be in the player's view. Therefore, I try not to create too low poly a model and lay down denser geometry. After the model is ready, I adjust the shading and apply smoothed edges to it. I create the retopology for the fish using the same principle. I only polygon half of the model and try to create a mesh based on our high poly shape. I might create a bending animation for the fish, so it's worth creating a denser topology. If you want to deform and bend an object later, you should think about this when creating the low poly. To make the geometry appear on the other side, I use mirror, and I also apply smoothed edges to the entire fish. After I've finished creating the low poly for all the objects, it's time to start the UV unwrapping. Most of the elements are quite simple. I just cut them into two halves, and that's enough. Various elongated parts, like this ribbon, I cut on the sides and add one bottom cut. When creating the UV unwrapping, it's important that the seams are in less noticeable places and the number of seams is as few as possible. For the backpack, I'm going to use overlap, so I temporarily delete the extra half of the geometry and refine the model's shading so that there's a cut and hard edge at the junctions of the volumetric straps. This will enhance the volume in the model and ensure better interaction with dynamic lighting. I repeat the same for the rolled up rug. You can see what the finished UV unwrapping looks like for each element. And when all the objects are unwrapped, I proceed to the overall UV packing. I place a piece of rope as a trim, and for this, I place it at the edge of the unwrapping without using padding on the edges. Now I adjust the other UV shells of the objects so they don't overlap other parts. When the entire UV unwrapping is ready, I proceed to create overlaps. For this, I simply mirror the backpack geometry to the other side and in the UV editor, move the red part to the right UV square. I perform the same operation with the other symmetrical elements. This technology allows saving a lot of UV space, which affects the quality of textures in the game. After the UV unwrapping is ready, I select all the objects and export the low poly in FBX format. In general, the backpack with props is ready for baking maps, so I move to Marmoset. To start in Marmoset, I load the low poly and high poly of the backpack. The baking process is quite simple. I create a new bake project and add groups for each element. Now I place the objects in the low and high slots. This is a monotonous process that takes some time. Write in the comments what format of videos you like more on my channel, when I voice the process or just regular time lapses with light music. Don't forget to like, and if you're here for the first time, be sure to subscribe to the channel. When all the elements are distributed into B groups, I set the baking parameters and specify the path for saving the maps. First, I bake the normal map because it's one of the main maps. The result turned out pretty good, but some elements didn't bake. For this, I slightly increase the cage distance where necessary and rebake the normal map. When the normal map is fully baked without artifacts, I bake additional maps that I will need in the texturing process. I got this result, and I consider it a success. All the maps baked well, and I'm ready to start texturing the model and move to Substance Painter. To start working in Substance Painter, I set up the main project, add the low poly model and baked maps, and also set the project parameters. Now I assign the maps to the model and simply drag them into the necessary slots. For the correct operation of generators and smart materials, I will need additional maps, so I do additional baking. In this video, I will use my new materials and generators. The basis for my texturing will be the FT Smart material. Create more interesting and stylized textures with the FT Smart material. The main logic of the material is in generating masks and artistic patterns. Texture your 3D models with simple settings. create unique textures for wood, metal, rust, paint, stone, moss, and much more. FT Smart material is already available for purchase on platforms like ArtStation, QBrush, and FlipNormal via the link in the description. If you're from Russia or the CIS, you can purchase FT Smart material in the VK community. The link will be in the description of this video. I also add my FT Diffuse generator to the FT Smart material. With this generator, you can create a volumetric stylized base for further texturing. I set up the base color of the backpack, the top and bottom gradients, ambient occlusion, and much more. Then I move on to the main settings of the generator. This is baked lighting that I can control. With simple parameters, I adjust the position of the highlights on the model and regulate the strength and diffusion of these highlights to achieve a result that I will like. I remind you that you can also buy FT Diffuse on my ArtStation or in the VK community. You will find the product link in the description of this video. Now I'm adjusting the highlight color to match the main tone of the backpack and duplicating FT Diffuse once more. I want to set the baked lighting uniquely for each pocket to make it look nice. The logic is quite simple. I created basic settings in FT Diffuse for the backpack and duplicated to slightly edit the lighting. After I'm done with the base color for the backpack, I move on to the metallic details, which I create using FT Smart material. FT Smart material has a separate powerful generator for creating metallic surfaces, which is very convenient to use. You can see how I generate artistic masks on the metal, and it's more noticeable on the pan. I understand that these objects will be quite small and see no point in creating detailed textures, so I try to create large spots so they can be read from a distance. I also duplicate FT Diffuse to create a volumetric base for the rolled up carpet and create a separate layer with a mask to draw different patterns. I remind you that the carpet has an overlap and is completely symmetrical, so I can draw a pattern on one side, and it will duplicate to the other side. This pattern came to my mind by chance, and I think it looks pretty cool. Now I need to adjust the colors for the carpet and the pattern to make it look more organic. To create the effect of aged material or leather, I enable the EJWFT Smart Material Generator. This generator also has simple and convenient settings, with which I adjust the intensity of the edges on the model. Right now, the EJs are too heavily generated, and I clean the model from unnecessary lines by simply erasing them on the backpack. Later, I will refine these EJs manually to make it look more organic. And if you want to see the whole process without speeding up, just scan the QR code or follow the link in the description to my Boosty. The first week of viewing will be free. To create the base color for the fish, I use FT Diffuse and adjust its parameters. With this generator, I managed to save a lot of time and create cool things in a few minutes. Let's not forget that the fish is in the water and shines a lot, so contrasting highlights suited perfectly. Also, with FT Diffuse, it's very easy to paint various wooden surfaces. I just added to the wooden handle of the spear and also adjust the base color of the wood, giving it more volume with gradients and shadows. I also add baked lighting, changing its color a bit to make it look more attractive. For simpler elements like this flower, I use the free FT material, which has fewer functions. The scroll is very small, and for it, you can make a simple color fill with small shadows and gradients. I also duplicate this material to add color to the wrapping. All that's left is to add color to the straps on the backpack and the carpet. I think it would be better to make something bright, beige for these elements. I also use FT Diffuse to create a volumetric base for texturing and adjust the baked lighting. You can notice how the backpack straps have become much more voluminous, but now the light is very bright, so it needs to be toned down a bit and also add volume using other FT Diffuse parameters. I adjust the top and bottom gradients to make the overall light in the model more physical and add bright edges. Right now, I'm not particularly fond of the base color shade, so it's worth picking something better. Following the analogy with the overall painting of the backpack, I duplicate FT Diffuse once more to adjust the outer strap and shift the highlight to another place. I repeat the same for the rolled up carpet and adjust FT Diffuse for the new straps. Off-screen, I refined the textures a bit, and here's what I got. The backpack now looks more pleasant. For the fish, I added scales and blood at the hook points. The other objects were also slightly refined, and now we can export the finished textures. I choose a resolution setting of 2K and a preset for Unreal because we will be summarizing in the engine. And now we can return to Maya to fully assemble the backpack. First, I open the file in Maya with the low poly model and for clarity, add a new material to which I apply textures from Substance Painter. In Maya, by default, the color display is very contrasting, so it's worth changing this parameter. I combine the fish and the hook into one object. I duplicate the elastic on the backpack. Some elements are not quite aligned, so I also refine the attachment points of the objects. Now let's duplicate the main strap to the other side of the backpack. According to my idea, the scrolls should lie in the side pocket. I just duplicate the scrolls and place them in the pocket. It's also worth slightly rotating and resizing the scrolls to add a bit of uniqueness and silhouette to the design. After the main details are placed, I move on to smaller elements. I just duplicate the buckle details from the backpack and place them on the carpet. Let's not forget about the backpack itself. There are also fasteners. I combine the fastener into a single object and mirror it to the other side. The same operation needs to be repeated for the small belt straps. The carpet is fully assembled. Let's place it in the right spot. According to the idea, it should be on the top part of the backpack. For clarity and understanding of the design, I preliminarily place the fish and the pan at the level where they will be attached with ropes to the backpack. To create the ropes, I will use a trim texture. But first, I create a torus that fits the diameter of the spear handle. Now it's necessary to apply the main material with our textures to it and unfold it into a straight line. Then I just place it on the desired piece of texture, and it's all set. Following the same principle, I create various pieces of rope for all the elements, just modeling the necessary parts and unfolding them on the main texture. Overall, the backpack is fully assembled, only the spear needs to be placed in the right spot. Now I want to explain the logic behind how I created the rig for the backpack and imported it into Unreal Engine. The overall rig for the backpack was created in Maya using basic functions and without using third-party plugins. The system here is quite simple. The backpack has a main bone to which the other elements are attached. The fish, pan, spear, and small straps. I connected the main rig of the backpack with a bone to the base rig of the character to avoid various artifacts. It also took me several days to create the skinning for the backpack so that the elements move correctly and don't stretch. I will apply physics to all these elements in Unreal Engine 5. I also added one bone to the carpet to try to create amortization physics. My main character is created based on the base rig of Unreal. I did this to retarget and attach the basic animations of walking, running, and jumping in Unreal. Now you can notice that the backpack is completely attached to the character and is one whole. Let's move to Unreal Engine. I created physics for all the backpack details. Now these elements fully interact with the character's behavior and depend on his movement. I'm not particularly strong in technical animation, and it took me some time to learn the basic functions, but for my personal project, this is an amazing result. During the creation of this project, I learned a lot of new information and am grateful to my friends for their help and valuable advice. Be sure to like and comment if you want to see content on animation, rigging, or physics in Unreal Engine. I can record separate tutorial videos in collaboration with my friends. Here are a few shots of my character equipped with the new backpack running around the location. I hope this video was useful to you, and I want to remind you about our open Discord server dedicated to creating stylization. You can find the link in the description. Well, I wish you creative success. This was Fred. See you soon.